Marcus pedaled through the yellow light. Not fast. Not reckless. Just steady. The bike lane ended at the corner. The street widened. Morning traffic hummed like a tired animal. A police siren chirped. Once. Sharp. Marcus slowed. Looked back. A cruiser rolled beside him. The window slid down. "Hey! You blind?" the officer shouted. Marcus squeezed his brakes. His foot hit the pavement. "I was in the bike lane," he said. The officer stepped out. Tall. Wide chest. Hand already on his belt. "You ran that light." "It was yellow." The officer laughed. "Yellow means stop. But I guess rules are optional for you." People on the sidewalk paused. A woman with coffee froze. A man with a dog stopped walking. Marcus felt heat rise in his face. "I signal every turn," he said. "I ride this route every day." The officer leaned closer. "You people always say that." Marcus blinked. "What do you mean, you people?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Don't get smart." A bus hissed to a stop behind them. Its side read, "City Transport Board, public meeting today." Marcus saw his reflection in the bus window. Helmet. Vest. Calm face trying to stay calm. The officer pulled out his ticket book. "Get off the bike," he said. "Now." Marcus stepped down. Cars honked. Phones lifted. The officer said, low and sharp, "Today, you're learning how the street really works." Marcus felt his chest tighten. And he knew. This was not about a light. Marcus stood beside his bike. The officer circled him slowly. "You always ride like this?" the officer asked. "Like what?" Marcus said. "Like you own the road. I follow the lane." The officer pointed behind them. "There is no bike lane there." Marcus turned his head. Blue paint cut across the street. A white bike symbol sat in the middle of it. "There," Marcus said. "That's the lane." The officer squinted. "That's a shoulder. It's marked." The officer snorted. "You think paint makes it law?" A man from the sidewalk spoke. "It does," he said. "That's a bike lane." The officer snapped his head toward him. "Did I ask you?" The man raised both hands. "I'm just saying. Move along." The man moved. Marcus swallowed. "You ran a light," the officer said. "I didn't." "You arguing with me?" "No. I'm explaining." The officer stepped closer. "You got ID?" Marcus reached for his wallet slowly. "Don't make sudden moves," the officer said. Marcus froze. "I'm just getting my wallet." "Do it slow." Marcus pulled it out. The officer took the card. "You live around here?" "Yes." "Where?" "2 blocks. So you think this is your street?" "It's everyone's street." The officer wrote something down. "Where you going?" "To a meeting." "About what?" "Transportation." The officer looked up. "Funny." "What's funny?" "Cyclists always think they run traffic." Marcus looked at the ground. A woman whispered, "This is wrong." The officer's pen scratched louder. "Step back from the bike." Marcus did. The officer kicked the rear wheel lightly. "Lights working?" "Yes." He flicked them. They shone. "Bell?" Marcus rang it. Ding. "Helmet?" "On." Reflectors. There. The officer's jaw tightened. Where's your registration? For my bike. Yeah. Bikes don't have that. Not in my city. Marcus felt his stomach knot. Is this about the light? It's about your attitude. My attitude is calm. The officer leaned in. You look nervous. You're yelling. I'm giving orders. A bus hissed again. More people stood watching now. A teen held up a phone. The officer noticed. Don't record. It's legal, the teen said. The officer stared at him. Put it down. The teen hesitated. Marcus said, he can record. Did I ask you? The officer's voice was sharp. Marcus felt a pulse in his ears. I just want to go to work. Work where? Downtown. Doing what? City business. The officer laughed. Sure. Marcus looked at his watch. I'm late. Should have stopped. I did stop. You stopped because I told you. The officer tapped the ticket pad. You want to make this easy or hard? I want it fair. The officer's eyes narrowed. You know what fair looks like. He pointed at the cruiser. It looks like you leaning on that hood while I check you. For what? For warrants. I don't have any. Everyone says that. Marcus took a step back. Am I under arrest? Not yet. The words hit harder than a shout. Not yet. Marcus felt the crowd closing in. He felt small and seen at the same time. The officer's radio crackled. He ignored it. Hands on the hood. For what reason? Suspicion. Of what? Don't push me. Marcus walked to the car. He placed his palms on the metal. Cold. The officer patted his pockets. People murmured. This is crazy. He didn't do nothing. The officer said, quiet. Marcus stared at the street. Painted blue. Ignored. The officer leaned close to his ear. You think you're special? Marcus didn't answer. You think this lane protects you? The officer straightened. Turn around. Marcus turned. The officer held up the ticket book. I can write you up. For what? Failure to obey. I obeyed. Disorderly. I'm calm. Obstruction. I answered. The officer smiled thinly. Pick one. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not loud. Not fast. Just deep. Why are you doing this? Marcus asked. The officer looked at him. Because I can. Cars passed. Phones recorded. The bus door closed. The officer's pen hovered. Last chance, he said. You want to cooperate, or get cuffed? Marcus opened his mouth. And the officer's radio crackled again. Louder this time. Unit 3, respond. The officer hesitated. His pen paused in the air. The officer pressed the radio button. Unit 3 here. Static answered. Marcus stood still. The officer clipped the radio back to his shoulder. Stay there. I am, Marcus said. The officer looked at his ID. Marcus Reed. Yes. He typed the name into the cruiser computer. You got any nicknames? The officer asked. No. Ever been arrested? No. Ever been stopped? Yes. The officer looked up. For what? For biking. The officer smirked. Funny. The screen glowed. The officer waited. Cars passed slow. People watched. The teen kept filming. Marcus felt sweat on his neck. The officer said, "You nervous?" "I'm standing in front of a police car. People who aren't hiding things don't sweat. It's summer." The officer leaned back on the door. "Where you coming from?" "Home." "Where you headed?" "Downtown." "To do what?" "Attend a meeting." "With who?" "My board." The officer's eyes moved to Marcus's vest. "Safe Streets Coalition," he read. "Sounds fake." "It's not." "Sounds like a front." "A front for what?" The officer shrugged. "Drugs. Theft. Protests." Marcus blinked. "I don't do any of that." "Everyone says that." The teen stepped closer. "Sir, he didn't do anything." The officer snapped his head. "I told you to put the phone down." "I'm allowed." "Put it down." The teen didn't. The officer took one step toward him. Marcus spoke fast. "Please don't touch him." The officer turned back. "Worried about your friend?" "I don't know him." "Then mind your own business." "I am." The officer tapped the cruiser. "Hands back on the hood." Marcus did it. "Cold metal again." The officer's voice lowered. "You got anything on you I should know about?" "No." "No weapons?" "No." "No drugs?" "No." "No knives?" "No." "No trouble?" "No." The officer paused. "Mind if I check?" "Yes." The officer smiled. "Wrong answer." "Do you have cause?" "I have suspicion." "Of what?" "Of lying." Marcus swallowed. "I'm not lying." "Turn around." Marcus turned. The officer patted his pockets again. "Harder this time." "Spread your feet." "For what?" "Stop resisting." "I'm not." "Then don't talk." Marcus spread his feet. The officer checked his waistband. People murmured. "This is too much. He's just biking." A woman said, "Let him go." The officer raised his voice. Everyone stepped back. The crowd stepped back. Except the teen. The teen said, "I'm recording for safety." The officer pointed. "You want trouble?" The teen's hand shook. But he kept filming. The officer looked back at the screen. "System slow today." Marcus stared at the street. Blue paint. He remembered another street. 3 years ago. Another stop. Another officer. "Why you riding at night?" "Because I work late." "Where you going?" "Home." "Where's home?" "East Side." "Step off the bike." That night, they searched his bag. Found nothing. Let him go. No apology. Just silence. "Back now," the officer said, "you always this mouthy." "I answer your questions." "You answer too much." "Should I stay quiet?" "Don't play games." Marcus felt the words stack inside him. Like boxes he could not lift. The officer said, "You work?" "Yes." "Where?" "City." "Doing what?" "Planning." "Planning what?" "Transit." The officer laughed. "Figures." "What does?" "Bike guy into transit." Marcus didn't answer. The radio crackled again. "Unit 3, status." The officer pressed the button. "Running ID." Any issue? The officer looked at Marcus. Possible obstruction. Marcus said, "What?" The officer looked back at the radio. Stand by. He clicked it off. Marcus felt his heart thud. Obstruction of what? Marcus asked. Of me doing my job. I didn't stop you. You questioned me. I spoke. Same thing. The officer leaned closer. You know what people like you do. What? You push. You test. Then you cry. I'm not crying. Not yet. The teen said, Sir, that's not right. The officer snapped. Last warning. The teen's eyes went wide. But the phone stayed up. A bus rolled past. Windows full of faces. Someone inside pointed. Someone else shook their head. Marcus felt small again. The officer's computer beeped. He looked at the screen. No warrants. No flags. Clean. His mouth tightened. So, Marcus said softly, Can I go? The officer stared. Not done. With what? With you. The officer wrote on the pad. Failure to obey traffic signal. I didn't. Disorderly conduct. I wasn't. Interference. With what? The officer looked up. With me. Marcus felt anger rise. He pushed it down. I need to get to my meeting. What meeting? The transport board. The officer laughed. Sure. I'm serious. Everyone is. The officer tore the paper. Sign here. For what? For the ticket. I didn't do this. Sign or I take you in. Marcus stared at the pen. The teen whispered, Don't sign. The officer snapped, Quiet. Marcus held the pen. His hand shook. If I sign, can I leave? Maybe. Maybe. Depends on your attitude. Marcus signed. The officer took the slip. Now put your hands back. Why? Because I said. For how long? Until I'm sure. Sure of what? That you're not trouble. Marcus faced the hood again. The officer spoke low. You see that camera? He tapped his body cam. It shows what I want it to. Marcus felt cold. You want to make it worse? The officer asked. No. Then don't move. The teen stepped forward. Sir, his name is Marcus Reed. I looked him up. The officer turned fast. You did what? I searched him. The officer's eyes sharpened. Put the phone down. He's. Now. The teen hesitated. The officer reached for his cuff. Metal clicked. Hands behind your back, the officer said. To who? Marcus asked. To you. For what? For resisting. I didn't resist. Turn around. Marcus turned. The officer grabbed his wrist. Hard. Spread your feet. Marcus inhaled. The crowd gasped. The teen said, This is wrong. The officer said, Last chance. Marcus felt the grip tighten. And the siren chirped again. Not from this car. From another. Pulling in behind them. The second cruiser stopped behind them. Its lights flashed blue, then red, then blue again. People turned their heads. Phones rose higher. The first officer loosened his grip but did not let go. Stand still, he said. I am, Marcus said. The new officer stepped out. Younger. Quieter. Eyes moving fast. "What's going on?" he asked. "Cyclist ran a light," the first officer said. "Got mouthy." Marcus said, "I didn't run the light." The younger officer looked at the blue paint on the road. "There's a bike lane here." "So?" the first officer snapped. "So he was allowed through." The first officer's jaw tightened. "I saw him run it." "You were behind him," the younger officer said. So you couldn't see the signal?" The first officer stared. The younger officer cleared his throat. "Sir, can you tell me what happened?" Marcus took a breath. "I was in the bike lane. It was yellow. He stopped me and said there was no lane." The first officer cut in. "He refused orders." "I asked why," Marcus said. "That's refusal," the first officer said. A news van rolled up to the curb. The side door slid open. A woman with a camera stepped out. The crowd murmured louder. The first officer straightened his shoulders. "What is this?" he said. The reporter looked at Marcus. "Sir, are you okay?" Marcus blinked. "I think so." "Did the officer stop you?" "Yes." "Why?" "For a yellow light." The first officer snapped. "This is an active stop." The reporter said, "We're on a public street." The camera pointed at Marcus. His chest felt tight. The first officer stepped in front of the lens. "You need to move." The reporter said, "Is he under arrest?" The officer said, "Not yet." The words hung heavy. "Not yet." The younger officer shifted his feet. "Sir, maybe we should." The first officer cut him off. "I've got this." Marcus felt heat in his face. "I just want to go," he said. The officer turned to him. "You don't get to decide." A woman in the crowd shouted, "Let him go." A man yelled, "He didn't do anything." The officer raised his voice. Everyone stepped back. The crowd did not move. The reporter spoke again. "What is your badge number, officer?" The officer looked at her. "You don't need that. It's public." He turned away. Marcus felt something shift. Not inside him. Around him. The street felt like a stage. The officer leaned close to Marcus. "You like attention?" "No." "Looks like you do." "I don't." "Then stop performing." "I'm standing still." "Your mouth isn't." The younger officer whispered, "Body cam is on." The first officer said, "Good." He faced the camera. "This man ran a red light and refused lawful orders." Marcus shook his head. "That's not true." The officer said, "See? He won't stop." The reporter asked, "Sir, do you have proof?" The officer held up the ticket. "This." "That's not proof," she said. "That's my report." Marcus said, "There's video." The teen raised his phone. "I have it." The officer pointed. "Turn that off." The teen said, "No." The officer stepped toward him. Marcus moved without thinking. "Leave him alone." The officer spun back. "Hands on the hood." "For what?" "For interference." "I didn't touch you." "You spoke." "I'm allowed to speak." "Not to me." The younger officer stepped between them. "Sir, calm down." The first officer stared at him. "You telling me how to work?" "No, sir." "Then move." The younger officer stepped back. The reporter said, "This looks excessive." The officer laughed. You want excessive? He grabbed Marcus's arm again. Hard. Marcus winced. The crowd gasped. Stop, someone yelled. The officer said, resisting. I'm not, Marcus said. Stop talking. I'm breathing. Don't get smart. Marcus felt his throat tighten. His eyes burned. He didn't cry. He wouldn't. The officer leaned in. You think cameras save you? Marcus met his eyes. I think truth does. The officer smiled. Truth is what I write. The younger officer shifted again. Sir, dispatch wants status. Tell them I'm busy. With what? With this. The reporter said, what's your name, sir? Marcus hesitated. Marcus Reed. And what do you do, Mr. Reed? Marcus looked at the officer. Then at the camera. I work for the city. The officer laughed. Of course you do. What department? The reporter asked. Marcus swallowed. Transportation. The officer said, so you think that helps you? I'm not saying that. You just did. The reporter's eyes widened. Transportation. As in. The officer cut her off. He's lying. Marcus said, I'm not. You look like a cyclist, not a planner. The words hit harder than a shove. The crowd murmured. That's racist. He didn't mean that, the officer snapped. I meant you dress like a kid. I'm wearing a vest. For a hobby. It's my commute. The officer leaned closer. You people always find a way to play victim. Marcus felt his hands shake. The reporter said, that sounds biased. The officer turned. You accusing me? I'm reporting. The officer faced Marcus again. Sign the ticket. I already did. Then you're not done. With what? With me. He lifted the radio. Dispatch, I may need backup. The younger officer said, we already have 2 units. Get another. For what? For crowd control. Marcus looked at the crowd. Normal people. Phones. Coffee. Backpacks. Threat. The officer said, Sir, put your hands behind your back. For what reason? For disorderly conduct. I'm standing still. You're causing a scene. You're causing it. The officer stepped closer. The cuffs clicked. Metal sound. The reporter whispered, Are you really arresting him? The officer said, Unless he shuts up. Marcus took a breath. He looked at the bus sign again. City Transport Board, public meeting today. He felt the time slipping. The room waiting. The people waiting. The truth waiting. I need to go, Marcus said. The officer laughed. Where? To a meeting. With who? With my board. The officer leaned in. You don't have a board. Marcus raised his voice. I do. The crowd went quiet. The officer stared. You lying now? Marcus looked straight at him. No. The reporter asked, What board? Marcus opened his mouth to answer. And a black sedan pulled up beside the news van. Its door opened. A woman in a city badge stepped out. She looked at Marcus. Then at the officer. Chairman Reed, she said. The street froze. The officer blinked. What? The woman with the badge stepped closer. Chairman Reed, she repeated. Marcus felt every eye turn to him. Yes, he said. The first officer laughed once. That's funny. The woman looked at the officer. I'm Lydia Perez. City Transportation Office. She held up her ID. We've been waiting for him. The officer's smile stayed. You got the wrong guy. She looked at Marcus again. Sir, your meeting starts in 10 minutes. Marcus nodded. I know. The younger officer shifted. The crowd murmured. The reporter lifted her mic. Are you saying this man is a city official? Lydia said, he's the chair of the City Transport Board. The officer stared at Marcus. Say that again. Marcus spoke slowly. I lead the board. The officer blinked. No, you don't. Yes, I do. You ride a bike. I oversee bike lanes. Silence. The officer laughed louder. That's rich. Lydia stepped closer to Marcus. We were worried when you didn't arrive. The officer waved a hand. Ma'am, this man ran a light. Lydia looked at the street. At a bike lane. That doesn't matter. It does, she said. It's protected. The officer frowned. I saw him break the law. The younger officer cleared his throat. Sir, the signal was yellow. The first officer shot him a look. Are you with me or them? I'm with the facts. The reporter said, Officer, are you aware of who he is now? The officer turned to her. I don't care who he claims to be. Marcus felt his chest loosen a little. Not because he felt safe. Because he felt seen. Lydia said, he's been appointed for 3 years. The officer said, anyone can say that. Lydia pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen. She held it up. A city web page. A photo of Marcus. Suit. Tie. Neutral smile. Marcus Reed, Chair, City Transport Board. The crowd gasped. The teen whispered, oh. The reporter said, wow. The officer stared at the phone. Then at Marcus. Then back at the phone. That don't mean nothing, he said. It means he's your boss's boss, the teen said. The officer snapped, shut up. Lydia said, he oversees transit policy. So he didn't break the law. You weren't there. I was, the younger officer said. The first officer turned. Watch yourself. The younger officer said, Sir, the bike lane is marked. And the light was yellow. And this stop is wrong. The officer's jaw tightened. Marcus spoke. I didn't want this. The officer glared. You should have said who you were. Would that have helped? The officer didn't answer. The reporter asked, why was he treated like a suspect? The officer said, he acted suspicious. How? He argued. About what? About the law. That's not suspicious, she said. The officer stepped closer to Marcus again. You set me up. I rode to work. You let them surround me. I didn't call them. The officer's voice dropped. You think this makes you better than me? No. You think this saves you? I think it explains me. The officer laughed again. You think because you got a title, you're not just another cyclist. I think because I'm human, I should be treated like one. The officer shook his head. You all love playing victim. The younger officer said, Sir, body cam shows the lane. The officer snapped, Stop talking. Lydia said, we need him released. He's under investigation. For what? Interference. With who? With me. The reporter said, that sounds personal. The officer turned on her. You got a problem? I have a question. Ask it somewhere else. Marcus looked at the officer. I followed the rules. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to make them up. The crowd murmured louder. This is abuse. Let him go. The officer's radio crackled. Unit 3, report. The officer pressed it. Subject is non-compliant. Marcus said, I am standing still. The officer ignored him. Crowd forming. Any threat? The officer looked at Marcus. Possible. Lydia said, he's the threat. The officer said, he's challenging me. The reporter whispered, that's not a crime. The officer snapped, step back. The reporter didn't. You can't order me. I can. Under what law? The officer paused. Obstruction. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He saw his own photo on Lydia's phone. Suit. Clean. Smiling. Not like now. Helmet. Vest. Sweat. He thought of the meeting room. Wood table. Chairs. Quiet voices. This street was louder. Lydia said, we need to move him to the meeting. The officer laughed. You're not taking him. Why? Because I said so. You don't outrank the city. I outrank him. Marcus said, no, you don't. The officer pointed at his badge. This does. Marcus said, my job makes the rules for your roads. The officer leaned in. You think that makes you safe? Marcus felt fear again. Not for his body. For his dignity. For my city, Marcus said. The officer scoffed. You ain't the city. I serve it. The reporter said, this is getting tense. The officer lifted his radio again. Send supervisor. The younger officer said, sir, we don't need. Send supervisor. The radio crackled. Supervisor en route. The officer turned back to Marcus. You like bringing your friends? I didn't. You like using your power? I didn't. You used it. I used my name. The officer's eyes narrowed. You think that changes things? It already did. The officer stepped back for the first time. Not far. Just enough to breathe. The crowd felt it. The air shifted. The reporter whispered into her mic. We are witnessing a dispute between a city official and police. Lydia stood beside Marcus. You okay? Yes. Are you hurt? No. Are you scared? Marcus paused. Yes. The officer heard that. He laughed softly. Good. Marcus looked at him. Why? Because now you know how it feels. How what feels? To not control what happens next. A black SUV rolled up. Different from the sedan. Police markings. The supervisor stepped out. Tall. Gray hair. Slow steps. He looked at the crowd. Then at the first officer. Then at Marcus. What's going on? He asked. The officer said, this man interfered with a stop. The supervisor looked at Marcus. And you are? Marcus said, Marcus Reed. The supervisor nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The first officer's eyes widened. The supervisor said, Chairman Reed. The street went silent again. The officer's mouth opened. No sound came out. The supervisor turned to him. Why is he in cuffs? He's resisting. Marcus said, I haven't been cuffed. The officer looked down. His hand still held Marcus's wrist. The supervisor said, let him go. The officer hesitated. Now, the supervisor said. The grip loosened. Marcus felt blood rush back to his hand. The supervisor said, explain. The officer started fast. He ran a light. He got loud. Crowd formed. The supervisor looked at the lane. Blue paint. White bike. The younger officer said, the light was yellow. The supervisor looked at Marcus. Is that true? Yes. The supervisor nodded. He looked back at the officer. You need to step back. The officer's face hardened. This isn't over. The supervisor said, it is for now. The officer stepped back. The crowd breathed out. The reporter spoke softly. Chairman Reed, will you comment? Marcus looked at the officer. Then at the camera. I will, he said. But not yet. Because the officer was still standing there. And his eyes still said. This isn't finished. The supervisor turned to the officer. Step over here, he said. The officer moved, slow and stiff. Marcus stood beside his bike. His hand still tingled. The reporter raised her mic again. Chairman Reed, what just happened? Marcus looked at the camera. Then at the officer. I was stopped for a yellow light, he said. I followed the bike lane. The officer cut in. He was arguing. Marcus said, I was answering. The supervisor held up a hand. Everyone calmed down. The crowd didn't move. Phones stayed up. The team kept filming. The supervisor said, Officer, did you check the signal? I saw him run it. You were behind him, the younger officer said. The supervisor looked at the younger officer. Is that true? Yes, sir. The supervisor nodded. He turned back to the first officer. Why did you say there was no bike lane? The officer shrugged. It looked like a shoulder. It's marked, the supervisor said. So it's law. The reporter asked, why was he searched? The officer said, he was suspicious. How? He talked back. That's not a crime, she said. The officer's jaw tightened. Marcus felt the moment widen. Like a door opening. Lydia stepped closer. We were worried when he didn't arrive. The supervisor said, he's free to go. The officer said, not until I finish. The supervisor looked at him. You already did. The officer's radio crackled. Internal Affairs requesting update. The officer froze. The supervisor pressed his own radio. This is Supervisor Grant. Scene under control. The officer stared at Marcus. You did this. Marcus shook his head. I rode my bike. The reporter asked, Officer, did you know who he was? The officer said, no. Would it have changed your stop? The officer paused. No. The crowd murmured. That's a lie. He treated him like trash. The supervisor turned to the crowd. Please step back. The reporter didn't. This looks like abuse of authority, she said. The officer snapped. You don't know the job. I know what I saw. The supervisor said, we're done here. The officer's eyes burned. The teen whispered, Mom, it's live. The word live moved through the street. Like wind. The reporter looked at her phone. Thousands watching. The officer's face went pale. The supervisor said, "Officer, your body cam. It's on." "Good." The reporter said, "And the bystander video?" The teen lifted his phone. "Here." The officer pointed. "Stop recording." The supervisor said, "No." The officer turned to him. "What?" "Let him record." The officer clenched his jaw. Marcus spoke. "I didn't want this." The reporter asked, "What did you want?" "To get to work." "To your board meeting?" "Yes." The reporter looked at the camera. "This is the chair of the City Transport Board." The crowd gasped again. The officer said, "So what?" "So this shows anyone can be stopped," she said. "Anyone," Marcus said. The supervisor looked at the officer. "Why did you call him non-compliant?" "He questioned me." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Did he touch you?" "No." "Then why search him?" The officer didn't answer. The reporter said, "Because he's black." The officer snapped. "That's not true." "Then why say, 'you people'?" The crowd murmured louder. The officer said, "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" she asked. The officer looked away. The supervisor said, "We'll review the footage." The officer said, "You're taking his side." "I'm taking the truth," the supervisor said. Marcus felt a strange mix of relief and weight. Relief he was not alone. Weight because the street was now a court. The reporter asked Marcus, "How did this make you feel?" Marcus thought. "I felt small," he said. "Like my words didn't matter." The officer scoffed. "You're playing it up." "I'm telling it straight." The supervisor said, "Officer, step back to your unit." The officer didn't move. "Now," the supervisor said. He moved. "Slow." The reporter said, "Will there be consequences?" The supervisor said, "There will be a review." The officer said, "For what?" "For conduct." The officer laughed once. "Because he's important." "Because he's human," the supervisor said. The teen zoomed in. The officer saw the screen. His own face. Hard. Close. Loud. The officer said, "Turn that off." The teen said, "No." The supervisor said, "Enough." A woman in the crowd said, "This happens every day." A man said, "Not on camera." Marcus felt his chest tighten again. He thought of his kids. Of them riding bikes. Of someone stopping them. The reporter asked, "Chairman Reed, what will you do?" Marcus looked at the officer. Then at the lane. "I will bring this to the board," he said. "I will ask for training." The officer laughed. "You think you can train me?" "I think you need it." The crowd murmured. The supervisor said, "Officer, badge number." The officer hesitated. The reporter repeated it into the mic. "Badge number 417." The officer's face changed. The supervisor said, "You're done for today." "For what?" "For this." The officer's radio crackled again. "Internal Affairs requests you report." The officer looked at Marcus. "This isn't over." Marcus met his eyes. "It already is." The reporter turned to the camera. "This incident will be reviewed by the city." Marcus picked up his bike. His hands shook. Lydia said, "We need to go." The supervisor nodded. "You're free to leave." The officer said, "You won't always be." Marcus paused. He looked back. "Neither will you." The crowd parted. He rolled his bike forward. The street felt different now. Not safer. Just louder. The reporter called after him. "Sir, one more question." Marcus turned. "Why does this matter?" Marcus looked at the blue paint. At the people. At the officer. "Because rules should protect us," he said. "Not scare us." He rode off. Behind him, the officer stood still. His face was on every phone. And the city was already watching. Marcus pedaled fast. Not from fear. From noise. Sirens. Voices. Cameras. The city felt louder than usual. Lydia walked beside him when he reached the building. "You okay?" she asked. "I will be," Marcus said. Inside, the meeting room waited. Wood table. Glass walls. City seal on the wall. Board members sat already. They looked up when he entered. One woman said, "Marcus, we saw the video." A man said, "It's everywhere." Marcus set his helmet on the table. "I didn't plan that." "You never do," the woman said. The door closed. The noise stayed outside. For now. A screen lit up. The video played. The officer's voice filled the room. "Yellow means stop. But I don't expect you to know that." Silence followed. A board member shook his head. "That's bad." Another said, "That's worse." The video jumped. Hands on the hood. Marcus looked away. "I didn't fight him," Marcus said. "We see that," the woman said. The room felt heavy. Like a court. A phone buzzed. Lydia checked it. Police union released a statement. "What does it say?" Marcus asked. "He acted in good faith." Marcus closed his eyes. "Good faith doesn't sound like that." The board chair beside him said, "The public is angry." "Good," another said. "Dangerous," the first said. Marcus spoke softly. "This is about more than me." The woman nodded. "It always is." The screen changed. A news anchor spoke. Questions of racial bias. Marcus felt his stomach drop. A board member said, "Training is not enough." Another said, "Training is what we control." Marcus leaned forward. "What about policy?" They looked at him. "Bike lane enforcement," he said. "Stops like this." The woman said, "We can recommend changes." "Then do it," Marcus said. A knock hit the door. Hard. Lydia opened it. Two men stood there. Suits. Badges. "Internal affairs," one said. The room went quiet again. They walked in. "We need to speak with Chairman Reed." Marcus stood. They sat across from him. "Were you harmed?" one asked. "No." "Were you threatened?" "Yes." "How?" He said, "I was learning how the street works." They wrote. "Did he touch you?" "He grabbed my wrist." They wrote. "Did he search you?" "Yes." "Without cause?" "Yes." They looked up. "Do you feel targeted?" Marcus paused. "I feel seen as trouble." They wrote again. The board watched. The man said, "Do you believe race played a role?" Marcus took a breath. "Yes." The room tightened. The man nodded. "We will review footage." "When?" Marcus asked. "Soon." The door opened again. A city lawyer stepped in. "We have a problem," she said. "What kind?" the woman asked. "Protests forming." Outside, voices rose. Marcus heard them through the glass. Hands up. Let him go. The city lawyer said, they want the officer fired. The board member said, that's not our call. But it's our street, Marcus said. A phone buzzed again. Lydia whispered, the officer filed a complaint. Against me? Marcus asked. Against the reporter. Against the teen. Against you. Marcus blinked. For what? Defamation. Marcus felt a laugh rise. He pushed it down. He defamed himself. The lawyer said, he says the video is misleading. The board member said, it shows his mouth. It doesn't show his heart, the lawyer said. Marcus said, it shows his power. The internal affairs man said, Supervisor Grant supports your account. That won't save him, another board member said. It will slow things, the woman said. The TV switched again. A press conference. The police chief stood at a podium. We take these matters seriously, he said. Marcus felt tired. The chief said, an investigation is underway. The reporter stood to the side. She raised her hand. Was the stop legal? The chief paused. We will determine that. Marcus whispered, he won't say no. Lydia said, he can't yet. The board member said, what do you want to do? Marcus thought. Of the officer's eyes. Of the teen's phone. Of his kids. I want training, Marcus said. Not words. Rules. The woman nodded. We can call an emergency session. Do it. The internal affairs men stood. We will need your statement again. Marcus nodded. They left. The boardroom felt smaller. The woman said, you ready for what comes next? What comes next? Marcus asked. Push back. From the street, a chant grew louder. Justice now. Marcus stood. He walked to the window. People filled the sidewalk. Signs. Phones. Anger. He saw the blue paint below. Thin line. Trying to protect. The board member said, they'll say you used your position. Marcus turned. I used my voice. They won't hear that. Then I'll say it again. Lydia said, media wants another statement. Marcus closed his eyes. His head hurt. Give me 5 minutes. He went into the hall. Cold water on his face. Mirror. Helmet hair. Tired eyes. A guard walked by. Sir, he said softly, my son bikes to school. Marcus nodded. That's why this matters. The guard nodded back. Outside, the chant changed. No more stops. Marcus felt the crack. Not in the street. In the system. Something had split. And what came out was loud. Lydia's phone rang. She looked at Marcus. Supervisor Grant called. What did he say? He says the officer is on leave. Marcus exhaled. Not relief. Just pause. And, Lydia added, the union is angry. Marcus looked back at the crowd. Let them be. The boardroom door opened. They're ready, the woman said. Marcus took his helmet. He didn't put it on. Not yet. He walked back in. The screen showed the officer again. Frozen mid-shout. A face caught in truth. Marcus said, play it. They did. And this time, the room didn't look away. The city did not sleep that night. Screens glowed in every window. Voices filled every feed. Marcus sat on his couch with the TV muted. The officer's face stayed on the screen. Frozen mid-shout. His daughter leaned against his shoulder. "Daddy, why is that man mad?" Marcus swallowed. "He thought I did something wrong." "But you didn't." "No." "Then why didn't he listen?" Marcus looked at the floor. "Some people don't hear everyone the same." His son walked in. "Kids at school said you're famous." Marcus gave a small smile. "I just rode my bike." The phone buzzed again. Text after text. "Proud of you. Stay strong. Be careful." "Be careful" felt heavier than the rest. His wife set a plate in front of him. "You didn't eat." "I wasn't hungry." "You still have to." He took a bite. It tasted like paper. She sat across from him. "They followed you home." "Who?" "Reporters." Marcus felt a twist in his chest. "Did you see them?" "Yes." "Down the block." Silence filled the room. The TV changed scenes. A protest. Signs lifted. "Justice on two wheels. Bias isn't a badge." A voice said, "The officer has been placed on administrative leave." His wife said, "That's not fired." "No," Marcus said. "It's waiting." His phone rang. It was the reporter. "Mr. Reed, people are calling you a hero." "I'm not." "They're calling the officer a villain." Marcus closed his eyes. "I don't want villains. I want change." "Will you speak tomorrow?" "Yes." "About what?" "About rules." The call ended. A knock hit the door. Soft. Not angry. Marcus froze. His wife stood. "I'll get it." Marcus followed her anyway. A neighbor stood there. "Old man from upstairs." "I saw what happened," he said. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." "My grandson bikes to work." Marcus nodded. "That's why I talked." The man hesitated. "Be careful." The door closed again. Marcus leaned against it. He slid down to the floor. His chest hurt. Not from fear. From weight. Being seen is heavy. The phone buzzed again. This time, unknown number. He answered. "Marcus Reed." A man's voice. "You trying to ruin my career?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Who is this?" "You know." "The officer." "How did you get my number?" "Union has ways." Marcus stood. "I didn't ruin anything." "You embarrassed me." "You did that." "You made me look racist." "You said the words." "I was doing my job." "You were doing power." Silence. "You think your board saves you," the officer said. "It didn't stop you. It will now." Marcus felt cold. "Don't call me again." The officer laughed. "You don't control this." The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. His wife said, "Who was it?" "No one." She knew he was lying. She didn't press. Outside, sirens passed. Not for him. But still close. The next morning, the street looked different. A camera van sat at the corner. A new officer stood by the light. Younger. Still. He looked at Marcus. Then at the lane. Then at the signal. Green. He raised a hand. "Go ahead." Marcus rode through. Slow. The city watched. At City Hall, Microphones waited. The board stood behind him. The crowd stood beyond them. Marcus stepped forward. "I was stopped for a yellow light," he said. "I was treated like I was lying." He paused. "That happens to people every day." A woman shouted, "Fire him." A man shouted, "Train them." Marcus lifted a hand. "I don't want one man punished," he said. "I want a system fixed." The reporter asked, "Do you forgive the officer?" Marcus thought of the call. "I forgive when there is change." The police chief spoke after him. "We will review our practices." The crowd booed. Marcus felt the air turn sharp. A board member whispered, "They don't trust him." Marcus nodded. "I don't either." Inside, the meeting ran long. Words stacked like boxes. Procedure. Policy. Oversight. Outside, people waited. Marcus walked out late. The sun was low. A man in a hoodie stood by his bike. "You the bike guy?" he asked. "Yes. My brother got stopped last night," the man said. "Same street." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "For what?" "For nothing." "Did he get a ticket?" "He got scared." Marcus closed his eyes. "It's not done," he said. The man nodded. "They're mad." "Who?" "The ones who don't like being filmed." Marcus rode home again. The lane felt thinner. The paint looked worn. At home, his kids drew pictures. A bike. A badge. A line between them. His daughter said, "This is you. This is the road. This is the rule." "What's that line?" Marcus asked. "The truth." Marcus smiled. At night, the TV showed the officer's face again. The caption read, "Disciplinary hearing set." His phone buzzed. Message from Lydia. "Union is pushing back. Hard." Marcus typed. "So are we." Another message came. From a blocked number. "You think this ends in your favor?" Marcus stared at the screen. Outside, a car slowed in front of his house. Not a police car. Just a dark one. It idled. Then drove away. Marcus locked the door. He looked at the bike by the wall. Helmet on the seat. Tomorrow, he would ride again. But tonight, the street felt closer. And the fight felt bigger. The hearing room smelled like old paper and coffee. Marcus sat in the front row. His hands stayed on his knees. "Do not shake. Do not look back." The officer sat across the room. Uniform gone. Suit instead. Same jaw. Same eyes. Cold. A union lawyer whispered in his ear. The police chief sat behind him. Stone face. A board clerk said, "All rise." Chairs scraped. The panel walked in. 3 men. 2 women. One looked at Marcus. Then looked away. The chairwoman spoke. "This is an internal disciplinary hearing. We will hear statements." The union lawyer stood. "Officer Grant acted within policy," he said. The cyclist ignored a signal. Marcus felt heat rise in his neck. The chairwoman said, "Officer Grant, you may speak." Grant stood. His voice was calm. "I feared for public safety," he said. The cyclist became hostile. Marcus whispered, he asked a question. The chairwoman looked at him. "Mr. Reed, you will have a turn." Grant continued. "I followed training. I used firm language. The chairwoman nodded. Show the footage. The screen came on. The street appeared. Yellow light. Marcus's voice. I had the right of way. Grant's voice. Step off the bike. Now. Grant's mouth stayed tight as his own words filled the room. You people always got excuses. A small sound came from the crowd. A breath. A gasp. The chairwoman said, pause. She looked at Grant. What did you mean by, you people? Grant blinked. I meant cyclists. Marcus spoke without standing. Then why look at me? The chairwoman raised a hand. Mr. Reed, your turn. Marcus stood. His legs felt soft. My name is Marcus Reed, he said. I was stopped for riding through yellow. He looked at the panel. I was treated like a threat. The union lawyer said, were you obeying the law? Yes. Do you have proof? Marcus nodded. Our system tracks lights, he said. My board keeps records. A panel member leaned forward. You are the board chair. Yes. A ripple moved through the room. Grant's lawyer stiffened. So you have power. Marcus shook his head. I have rules. Same as everyone. He looked at Grant. He didn't know who I was. Silence fell. That's the point. The chief cleared his throat. We take this seriously, he said. We train our officers. A woman on the panel asked, is you people trained? The chief did not answer. The chairwoman said, Officer Grant, have you had prior complaints? The union lawyer spoke fast. Nothing proven. The chairwoman said, show the record. A screen changed. Lines of text. Verbal warning. Community complaint. Bias training referral. Grant's jaw jumped. Marcus felt his heart hit his ribs. A man in the crowd said, he's done this before. The chairwoman hit her gavel. Order. Grant spoke. I'm not racist. Marcus looked at him. Then why did you shout? Grant snapped. Because he talked back. Marcus said, I asked why. Grant pointed. You don't get to question police. The room froze. The chairwoman said, that is not our policy. Grant's face turned red. I risk my life out there. Marcus said, and I risk mine too. The panel whispered among themselves. Minutes stretched. The chairwoman spoke again. Officer Grant, your conduct violated standards, she said. Your language showed bias. Grant's lawyer said, you can't prove intent. The chairwoman said, we don't need to. We judge impact. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Reed, thank you for coming forward. Grant stood up fast. This is politics. The chief said, sit down. Grant did not. You throw me away for one stop. The chairwoman said, for a pattern. Grant laughed. You think this fixes anything? Marcus spoke. It starts something. Grant turned on him. You ruined me. Marcus held his eyes. You showed yourself. The panel stood. We will decide now. They left the room. The door closed. The crowd buzzed. A reporter whispered, what do you expect? Marcus said, I expect truth. Grant sat again. His leg bounced. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. The door opened. The panel returned. The chairwoman spoke slow. Officer Grant is suspended without pay, she said. Pending termination review. A sound burst out. Cheers. Claps. Shouts. Grant's face went gray. "This isn't over," he said. The chief said, "It is for now." The chairwoman raised a hand. "We also order department-wide review of traffic stops." Marcus felt air leave his lungs. A woman cried. Grant walked past Marcus. "You happy?" he hissed. Marcus said, "No." Grant paused. Marcus said, "I'm tired." Outside, cameras waited. The sun was high. A reporter asked, "What does this mean?" Marcus said, "It means a badge is not above a bike." Another asked, "Do you feel safe now?" Marcus thought. "No," he said. "But I feel heard." His wife hugged him. His kids waved from the steps. A man from the crowd shouted, "Ride on." Marcus rode home. The lane looked brighter. Fresh paint. New signs. "Yield to cyclists." At the corner, a young officer stood. He nodded. "Good morning, sir." Marcus nodded back. "Morning." At home, he sat on the floor. The weight hit him then. His hands shook. His wife sat beside him. "You did good." "I did loud," he said. "That's what it takes." His phone buzzed. Message from Lydia. Union dropped the appeal. Marcus typed. "Thank you." Another message came. From an unknown number. "You think this is justice?" Marcus stared. He deleted it. He looked at the bike. Helmet ready. Road waiting. Tomorrow, he would ride again. Not because he won. Because he must. The screen faded. The city moved on. But the line stayed. Between power and people. And someone finally saw it.